They're called vayus. The 5 dimensions of prana are called vayus. Prana vayu has to do with the respiration, pulmonary action, respiration, and thought. Thought. And so when pranavayu, in terms of what it does, it just animates the body. It's the power, it's the life force. When it leaves the body, boom, the body drops. And that's when the doctor declares you dead. Is that always the case? We'll go on, right? And then the second form of prana, dimension of prana, is samana vayu. This is responsible for the generation of heat in the body. And so when prana vayu, when samana vayu leaves the body becomes cold and stiff. That's when rigor mortis set in. Right now, they all leave at the same time, but their effects might be a little bit slow. Because the next vayu is upana vayu, which is responsible for sensory activity, right? Sensory activity. And the sensory activity might still remain in the body because the body still wants to remain alive. That's its job. So oftentimes, when someone's declared dead, people can sometimes see the body twitching and moving. And it's kind of scary. It is because Upanavayu has not quite receded yet, right? And so the body twitches a little bit. In Upanavayu, the beard and hair still grows, even though the body is, for a while, even though life is supposedly gone from it, right? So these different kinds of, why is it important to know this? It's important to know this because I'm going to say the same thing again, just to know yourself and the instruments that allow you to be here so that you can work on them. Because if you are familiar with all of these vayus, these different energies of prana, you can also heal yourself. Because when you have a disease, one of these is critically involved. When you have dis-ease, we won't get into that. We're just going to get into what they are. So that's Upanavayu, which is the sensory nature of the body. And then you have Udanavayu. Udanavayu is, oh, that's what I was thinking of earlier. I couldn't come up with the words. Well, but Udanavayu has to do with the weight in the body. It has to do with buoyancy. Now, if anybody here is an EMT or has ever lifted a dead body, you know that a dead body is a lot heavier than one that is alive. If you're a mother and a father and you had to pick your child up when they were asleep, they're a lot heavier when they're asleep than when they're awake, because the Udana value is receded a bit when we're sleeping. Anybody experience that? Yeah. And the term for it is dead weight. Dead weight. Because when something is dead, it's heavier. Because it doesn't have the buoyancy within it. Or when someone's asleep, they're heavier because they don't have the buoyancy. We know that if we have kids and they fall asleep in the car, this was Papa G's big thing. The kids, you're driving and they fall asleep in the car and they're asleep, and then you take them out, you pick them up, and then you put them in bed. They're heavier. They're heavier. And that's because of Udana Vayu. And so there are people who are masters of Udana Vayu, and you see this a lot, like in karate movies and all that. You see them flying tiger, crouching tiger, flying dragon, whatever it is. And most of that is really fake. It's exaggerated. But if you really want to see Udana Vayu in its real natural nature, Look at some of the athletes that we have. If you watch highlights of basketball, is one of the biggest, because that's what you see the biggest amount of athleticism in my opinion. Watch Michael Jordan do a slam dunk. And here's an example of Udana. Two guys, and there are a bunch of them, but if you watch Julius Erving, if you know, you know, Dr. J, and Michael Jordan. Magic Johnson described this one time when he was playing Julius Erving in the Philadelphia 76ers. Julius Erving, if you know what a basketball, rim and the whole setup looks like, he jumped because he was being defended so well. The guy, and it's on film, you can look it up on you can go to ESPN and find it. Julius Erving airwalking out of bounds. And this is not any kind of movie where they do tricks. Julius Erving actually jumped out of bounds. And they saw this man walking. He's in the air. And he starts off on this side of the rim and ends up on fully the other side and puts up a shot completely on the other side and makes it. Now, usually when someone jumps, they jump, and when they land, they're maybe a couple of feet away from where they jump. They're not 6, 7 feet away from where they jumped. That is a mastery of Udana Bayu. They are masters of Udana. And there's schools for each one of these, especially Udana Bayu. Someone who levitates, they are masters of Udana Bayu. They can levitate. The mind has cultivated itself so much that it can dominate Udana Bayu, and they can levitate. Or they can do athletic feats that just are unbelievable. You watch Michael Jordan. You watch some of these, because basketball play is most indicative of this. And you watch somebody jump from, say, the free throw line 12 feet away from the basket. And when they start the jump, you go, that's not going to happen. But they just keep going. They just keep going. That is mastery of Udana Bayu. And then, of course, last, the fifth Bayu is Vijnana Bayu, where when that recedes, the body begins to rot. The body begins to rot. When someone dies, they don't start rotting right away. In the old days, when someone died, that body would be in the house for 3 days. Totally fine. Everybody comes around, everybody pays their tributes 3 or 4 days. It was during the American Civil War when there were so many dead that a business was created to remove the dead from all the different places. It's just too many. And then when the war was over, the businessmen who used to remove bodies decided to try to keep it going and create it. Now someone dies, you move the body right away. It's a business. Energy flows. One of a family member died, and the body was in the home, because in England they allow this. The body was in the home so people could see it, the actual body. She was there for 3 days. Actually, they didn't bury her for a month, but of course they got freezers now and all of that. But yeah, the body just doesn't go right away, because Vijnana Bayu can be there for up to 14 days. And so this falsehood about, if you have a dead body in the house, disease and all of that, if you have a dead body in the house for 2 or 3 days, nothing will happen. Because the things that spread diseases, dead bodies don't do. Dead bodies don't cough. They don't spit. They don't emit any kind of fluids. They don't do anything that causes disease to spread. Yeah, a lot of repetition in those moves. So that's why I don't say use them. But the movies, when they show that is an example. What they're doing is they're highlighting Udana Bayu when that karate guy jumps over a building or something like that. So and there are schools of Udon to master that, and there are probably people around the world, but most people that master that kind of stuff, they keep it to themselves. You know, most people who can levitate, the few that can, they're not out in the streets making a carnival out of it. It's a spiritual process, and they respect the process. Oh, he moonwalked backwards in midair? No, no. You'd have to see it. I don't know if because you said you're a sports fan. You ever saw Michael Jordan? I'll use Michael Jordan because he's much more. People remember him. I remember John Sally and Isaiah Thomas. This is just if you're a sports fan. If you know, it's not important. Michael did the same thing where he was on the left baseline, and it's probably about 7 feet between this line. You don't have to know what a baseline is, or the sides. And he jumped on the other side of the hoop, and there were so many defenders there. He kept going, and his body, by the time he took the shot, he was on the other side. This is Michael Jordan. Took the shot and made it. This is where he does that. He goes up and he does the underhand and throws it up like that. Isaiah Thomas, who was an all-time great, and John Sally were saying how they were going to, they were watching film on the Chicago Bulls, the team Jordan played for, and they were strategizing on what they were going to do next to stop Jordan. And they were watching film, and they saw Jordan do this, where he starts off over here, and 7 feet later, in a matter of a half a second, he's on the other side, and he makes the shot. And they looked at each other, stopped talking, and shut the film down. They were like, he does what he wants to do. It doesn't matter what we do. They were like, they had never seen anything like that. Never seen anything like that. So, yeah, you can watch those highlight reels on ESPN if you're interested in finding out like a real example of Udana Vayu. And if you just watch it, it won't look like anything because you're used to seeing it. It's like you see that move all the time. Oh yeah, that was Jordan. But if you really watch from where the man takes off and where he ends up, you're like, that's not humanly possible. It's not humanly possible. But yeah, you can see that. All right, you guys. I am going to end it here. I'm going to end it here. Because believe it or not, it's a lot of fun to me. Because most of the time, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. I know what the subject is going to be. I know what I was going to talk about. But how I speak about it, that's another story. Thank you. Thank you all for being here.